Hi, this will be my review of the 2020 pro season, where I will rank all the pro cycling teams in this tier list. This ranking will primarily be based on the team's performances, but also how they have appeared. Have they appeared in a positive manner, or rather a negative manner? This will include both on and off the bike. And also I will take into consideration which expectations were set for which team. So for example, the Koenig Quick-Step and a team Ineos will have a different standard to compare against than, let's say, a Kofilis or a Untitled development team, or for example, Israel Cycling Academy. So performance, appearance, and expectations will be the parameters I will rate the teams by. Okay, so we start off with Archer de Seur, La Mondiale. Not the strongest team, historically, at least as long as I can remember, the last 10 years. The two main stars, of course, on the team is Romain Bardet, 2 times second place in the Tour de France, of course, in 2016 and 2017. Second in 2016, of course, third in 2017. Of course, the big French Grand Tour hope alongside Thibaut Pinot. This year, I think he said before the season started that he would alter his goals from GC position to classics and stage hunting, because both in 2018 and 2019 he has been quite underwhelming. The other star on the team is Oliver Naesen, the runner-up in Milano-San Remo, of course, in 2019. He has won the Bretagne Classic. He has won on the Mur van Gerelsbergen in the Eneco Tour. He has a couple of top 10s in Flanders and Paris-Roubaix. He's like a cult hero, a fan favorite, especially on Twitter. Large potential, but he's never been on like top guys in the classics. Maybe in 2017 he showed a really high level, but then of course he had this famous crash on the Kvarmont where he and Peter Sagan lay in a spoon position after Sagan's handlebar touched a spectator, I think, a bag. So Naesen would probably expect like a couple of top 5s in the classics. Of course, I will use pro cycling stats just to contribute to my thoughts. The main thing to sum up Archer de Seur season, I think, is meh. No really big victories. Cosnefra was quite good. I think he won Entourages de Bessèges in February alongside with Grand Prix de Marseille. He also, of course, became a bit of a meme in the Tour de France after carrying the polka dot jersey for like 15 days, I think, something weird like that. Romain Bardet, of course, actually tried to perform decently in the Tour de France. He actually went for GC instead of stage hunting. He was, I think actually was third or fourth in the GC, but then on the stage where I think was it Leonard Kamner won in front of Daniel Felipe Martinez? He and both Bauke Mollema crashed and he got a concussion, lost a bunch of time, and he was forced to retire. So Romo there didn't have the greatest of season, as we can see. Did well in Dauphiné. Other than that, quite poor. And Oliver Nasen, he got a top 10 in, I think, in Eco Tour and in Flanders. So quite poor, even by Archer de Serre standards. Latour was a shadow of himself. I think he did okay on the Mount Ventoux challenge. That's basically it. I think Hanninen is a large talent. Other than that, I think it's quite bleak. I kind of look forward to next season when I get Greg van Avermaet. And also, I think Miguel Angel Lopez is rumored to transfer to Archer de Serre. So I would give Archer de Serre La Mondiale a D. Was quite unlucky because of the crash of Romain Bardet in the Tour. And also, I think Cosnefroid saved them a bit this season. Bit second place in La Flèche and having a polka dot jersey for so long. Okay, Alpecin-Fenix. Considering their Pro Conti team, I think their expectations would be lower, even though they have Mathieu van der Poel. But not only do we have Mathieu van der Poel, they have Tim Merlier, Dries de Pont, Jonas Rickard, just to mention a few. Mathieu van der Poel had a good season, a perfect season to be fair for most cyclists, but considering he's a multiple world champion in the cross cycling and mountain biking and probably top 3 cycling talents in the world right now, he has set the bar quite high. He did win an Eco Tour, and of course he won Ronde van Vlaanderen, so it's a good season, of course. He was quite disappointing in the races like Strade Bianche and Milan-San Remo, but a good season by him. Tim Merlier was good. He won some smaller Belgian classics, and he won a stage in Tirreno Adriatico. Dries de Bont won. I think Dries de Bont won the national championship of Belgium. And Belgium national championship, it is probably one of the most important national championship alongside the French. Jonas Rickard, I think, perhaps won a race, if I'm not mistaken. Just let me have a quick look. Yeah, he won Dvarsdor at Hageland. So I would say, considering their Pro Conti team, I would give them a A rating. So if Van der Poel had decided to ride the Tour, get some stages there, perform better in San Remo, yeah, probably an S. Okay, Androni Giacatoli. The team of the crazy guy, what's his name? Savio, I think. And a team of like 1,000 sponsor names across their kit. Of course, it's a famous team for developing young riders, especially South Americans. They have Ivan Ramirez Sosa and Egan Bernal. This year they don't have those riders anymore. They have, I think they have Kevin Rivera from Costa Rica, a quite talented climber. I think he won one of the Romanian stage races, the CI Tour, I think, last year. And I think they have Miguel Flores. I think he won a Queen stage in Vuelta San Juan. That's what stands out for me. So I can't. Of course, they have like a ride like Marco Frapporti, who is always in the breakaway in the Giro. If I just have to quick check on their stats this year, yeah, Restrepo won a bunch of stages in Rwanda. Other than that, it's quite bleak. Always a presence in the Giro, but yeah, I have to give them a D rating on this tier list. I think if they get a Giro stage win, or Tirreno Adriatico stage win, it's automatically a B or an A, but yeah, I'm quite harsh on them. Okay, Arkea Samsic, the team of Warren Barguil, was ridden for them for a couple of years. Then before the season they signed Nairo Quintana and his like entourage of manager and doctor and winner Anacona, and his little brother Dyer Quintana. Nairo Quintana started the season with a bang in February, where he won Provence and Haute-Var, both crushing the opposition on the mountain stages. And he also won the final stage in Paris-Nice. He would most likely get a top 3, I think. But he had a puncture in one of the crosswind stages. Otherwise, he was possibly the best rider pre-Corona. Warren Barguil was quite anonymous. I think he did well in Vabransepil and Liège-Bastogne-Liège, and he got like a 15th spot in GC on the Tour de France. It's quite difficult to rate because Quintana had his knee injury in July, and he never really recovered after that. He did well in Dauphiné. He was like top 5, top 6, but then last stage he lost like 20 minutes, I think, or he DNF'd, complaining about his knee. Yeah, Bouhanni did well, Quintana did well, so I think I'll give them a B. Didn't perform in the larger races like the Tour, but winning races like Provence and Haute-Var, and basically having the strongest climber in the world at that time, I think it's quite important for a team of that stature. So just to double check their results. Okay, maybe a C, but for now I will keep them at B. Okay, Astana, the team of Jakob Fuglsang and Miguel Rangel Lopez, and of course one of the big breakthrough riders of the year, Alexander Vlasov. Fuglsang was of course last year one of the strongest riders in the world. He won Liège, Bastogne-Liège. He was up there in Lombardia, Amstel Gold Race, Flèche Wallonne, Tirreno Adriatico. So the best hilly rider last year. Of course, he had a controversial winter period after the doping suspicious with Michele Ferrari, but of course that didn't surmount to anything. Fuglsang had a great season, but compared to last season it was not at the same level. He won Andalusia, Lombardia, and he did well in both Strade Bianche and Giro dell'Emilia, I think, and he got a 6th spot in the Giro. Considering the strength of the field and all the abundance, it's quite disappointing for a rider of that stature, but if you look at Jakob Fuglsang's GC history, yes, won top 10 in GC, and that was the Tour in 2013. He was 7th. But good season from Jakob. Miguel Angel Lopez did okay. He of course won the Queen stage in a Tour to the Col de Los, where he rode away from both Pogacar, Richie Porte, and of course Primož Roglič. He was on tracks to take a podium spot, but of course he fucked it up in the time trial to La Planche de Belfi. He lost like 5 minutes to Pogacar. And then he of course crashed on the prologue of the Giro and had to abandon. Vlasov, on the other hand, amazing year. Won the Mont Ventoux Challenge. I think he won one of the stages in Tour de Provence and got 3rd on GC. I really look forward to see what Vlasov could do in the Giro. But of course he had this stomach bug or something. He had to abandon on stage 2. Then he rode Vuelta. Came in quite poor form. Hadn't recovered properly. Rode himself into the race. Attacked on multiple mountain stages. Never won anything but a couple of top 5 placements. And he finally got like a 11th spot on GC, 2 seconds behind Valverde. So great season from Vlasov. Lutsenko, not so impressive. He of course won stage 6, I think, of the Tour de France, where we beat Nelson Paules and Greg van Avermaet, I think. Other than that, it was quite a disappointing race, or season, I mean, sorry, from Lutsenko. Just to see if I have missed something. Yeah, did okay in the early season, as he always did in Provence and Vuelta. Of course, his favorite race, Tour of Man, was cancelled this year, so maybe that means something. Other than that, Jonis Aguirre won stage 2 for Megal in the rain, in a fog. I think it was stage 7 of this year's Vuelta. Other than that, Aramburu did okay. Other than that, it was mainly Fuglsang, Lopez, and Vlasov carrying the team. I would give Astana a C rating. They won the monument in Lombardia, even though it was quite a poor start list. 2 top 10s in Grand Tours, won a couple of Italian races. Yeah, good season, but compared to previous years, especially last season where they won every stage races in the spring, it's okay. Bahrain McLaren, the team of Mikel Landa, Wouter Poels, Sonny Colbrelli, Ivan Garcia Cortina, and it's quite sad to say, but maybe not the team of Mark Cavendish, considering his recent years. Before the season, I had seriously high expectations of Ivan Garcia Cortina. I think I predicted he would be one of the breakthrough stars of the year. Like, he would be up there in races like San Remo, Bretagne Classic, maybe Flanders, Ghent-Wevelgem. The man has serious talent and has shown both he can ride hills, sprint, classics, he has panache, he can attack. He of course will transfer to Movistar next season, I think. He of course won one of the uphill sprints in, I think it was Paris-Nice when he beat Sagan in a sprint. Wouter Poels has been okay. He got his top 10 GC position in the Vuelta. He finished 6th, I think. Mikel Landa it's a okay season from Landa. He got a 4th spot on GC in the Tour, equaling his best from 2017, where he also placed 4th on GC. I think Sonny Colbrelli had quite an underwhelming year, with only one victory in La Route aux Satines. Bilbao was possibly the biggest surprise from Baran McLaren. He won 2 stages last year in the Giro. He's won a stage in Tour de Alps a couple of years ago. And he was, of course, top 10 2 years ago in the Giro. He rode a really good Tour de France in the support of Mikel Landa. He was up there in the stage where Kwiatkowski and Carapaz celebrated on the line on stage 19, I think. And then, of course, he went on to 4th in GC in the Giro d'Italia, which is quite a remarkable performance, considering he was one of the only guys riding both the Tour and the Giro, and he was the only one really performing. Cavendish had an abysmal year. It's quite sad to see, especially considering he might not get a contract renewal unless the kind of quick step snaps him up on a bonus contract. But I will give them a C. Mohoric got top 5 in Liège-Bastogne-Liège as well, so quite a few good performances, but not any big victories. Okay, Vital Concept. The team of Pierre Rolland and Brian Coquard, Bert de Backer, Arthur Vichot, and I think Tom Hjelteslagter, if I'm not mistaken. After a couple of dry years, I think Brian Coquard is back to his former best. I think he will never become one of the best sprinters in the world. He looked en route to become one of the best sprinters when he won. I think he won the under 23 World Championship in 2012, or he was second behind Lutsenko. I'm not quite sure. And then he had an amazing season, I think, in 2016, where he won like 15 races or something. But the main problem of Coquard is he never wins Volta races. He only wins HC races or 1-1 races. But he did quite well in the Tour, won a couple of stages and smaller French classics. And I'm a big Pierre Rolland fan. So when I heard he won the Mont Blanc stage race in August, I was quite thrilled. Then he went on to a top 20 GC placement, I think, in Criterium du Dauphiné. And he looked quite good on GC in the Tour de France. Then I think he lost like 10 minutes on the stage where Pogačar beat Hirschi and Roglic in the sprint on stage 9. And then he was in the breakaway like for the rest of the tour. I think he targeted the KOM jersey. He tried to snatch that up from Benoit Cosnefroid, but then he lost it in the end. And then, of course, Tadej Pogačar won it. Just double check on Vital Concept's season. Okay, maybe I will retract some of my statements of Blanco Card. Not many victories, but many high placements at least. So, if I just take performance into consideration, it's not the best year, but I think PR-wise and how they have appeared as a team, I think they have ridden positively, and riders like Kokar, Pierre Rolland, and especially Quentin Pacher, the bearded Frenchman, has been quite nice. So I think I will give them a C based on their expectations. Bardiani, I think I will just take them in the lull category. I remember back in the day when they were called Colnago, they had Gianluca Brambilla, Sasha Modolo, Domenico Pozzovivo, where they got the top 10 in a Giro with Pozzovivo. Modolo was great. And then they had they had this doping guys. I think can't quite remember his name. And then of course the seasons after they had Batalin, who won a couple of stages in a Giro. And then they had Daniel Chima, I think, last year. So they have a history of sometimes winning Giro stages, but this year I can't even remember if they got a victory. Okay, they won one stage of the Tour of Antalya, which is a crap race in Turkey. They have Matteo Palucci, who was a promising sprinter. I think he won a stage in Tour of Pologne in front of Marcel Kittel and some other guys, but that's like back in 2015, and he's become quite a meme because he's like a Mareczko sprinter. He never survives the hills, but if he gets in a position he might win, but I can't even recall and remember any of Bardiani's performances this year, so it's a lull for me. Okay, Bora Hansgrohe, the team of course, Peter Sagan, Rafał Majka, and all the MAN Germans, then which includes Buchmann, Ackermann, and Schachmann. I think Sagan, of course, had his worst season ever. It's fair to say. It's still a good season. Second in the points jersey competition in Tour de France. A stage victory in the Giro, which is quite good. Especially how we delivered on that stage. He was powering away from a chasing peloton on these steep Muros in the Giro. He did, can't remember, did he ride Milan Sanremo? Maybe he got like a top 10, I think he got like a fourth spot in Milan-San Remo, if I recall correctly, behind Michael Matthews on a third spot. But luckily for him, his teammates have really stepped up, especially the Germans and the Austrians. Buchmann had a underwhelming season, but that is basically because he crashed on that stage 5 in the Criterium du Dauphiné, or stage 4, alongside Kruijswijk and Primož Roglič. So he never recovered for the Tour with his, I think, injured his back. Ackermann had a bit on and off season. He was always consistent, like top 3 in the sprints, but he had the habit of always mistiming a sprint, always starting way too early, and also a bit dodgy moves, swerving to the right, taking big risk, especially on that stage 1 in Tirreno Adriatico, where he went through the smallest gap in cycling sprinting history on the right side of Fanal-Goveria. It was quite spectacular. Schachmann started the season with a bang. He won Paris-Nice. He also did, I think he got like 3rd or 4th in Strade Bianche, but then he was quite underwhelming afterwards. But that was mainly because he, of course, broke his collarbone in the Lombardia. After, I think, an old woman drove into the road, but I think it was the organizer's fault. They hadn't set up a sign, or they hadn't policed right or something. Other than that, let's see, Bora. Maika got sick the last couple of stages, so he lost his top 10 GC in the Giro, but I think Patrick Conrad got a top 10 in the Giro. I think he 7th or 8th spot. Yeah, 8th spot for Patrick Conrad, which is a great result. I think he got 8th in the 2018 edition as well. Top 10 in the Vuelta with Felix Groschartner, who also won uphill sprint in Vuelta Burgos, I think. Yeah, won the CB Tour with Mühlberger, who unfortunately got sick in the Tour de France. Yeah, bunch of good results. I think also they placed like 3rd on the team ranking. Okay, 6th. Okay, 6th. Okay, not that great, but I will say Bora Hansgrohe will get a B. Collectively strong. They won, of course, Paris-Nice, which is a great victory, but considering they have Ackermann and Sagan and Buchmann, they could have done better. Okay, Burgos. The team with the pink jerseys, purple jerseys. The team of Jetsebul and Angel Madrazo. Angel Madrazo, of course, won this stage last year in the Vuelta, where he and Jose Herrada and Jetsebul was in the breakaway, where Angel Madrazo was dropped like every 100 meters, but then magically won the stage in the end. This year, the only thing I can recall is Jetsebul in a couple of breakaways in the Vuelta España. I can take a look. Of course, they have Willie Smith, the South African YouTuber. Yeah, no victories. And a second place in Trofeo Matteotti, with Diego Rubo. So I think I will give them an F. I mean, I have higher expectations of a team like Bardiani, so I'm not quite as disappointed by Burgos. Okay, then it's... To be honest, I can't recognize this team logo. Is that Kahuwal? Okay, I will skip that by now. For now. Okay, Kahuwal is the next team. Can I even remember any of their riders? They, of course, they had Hugh Carty, Sergio Padilla, and Angel Arrojo, I think. David Arroyo, I'm sorry. A couple of years ago, and I think Luis Leon Sanchez as well. Okay. Abasturi is a decent sprinter. He got a couple of top 5s in the Vuelta last year. Other than that, not any large names. Ibarguren is a name I recognize, but is José Ibarguren, the doping doctor, currently employed by the Deconi Quickstep. Maybe it's his son. Maybe. Serrano, I think, won a stage. I think he won a stage in Valencia, if I'm not... yeah, okay, he won a stage in Andalusia. Abasturi won a stage in Hungary. I think they did okay in the Vuelta. So, a couple of wins, a couple of top 10s. I think it's decent for a team of Kahuwal stature. I will give them a D. If this team will... okay. I don't understand that, but that's okay. Okay, Team Kofilis, the team of Elia Viviani and Guillaume Martin. They have decent sprint train for Viviani. They have Consonni and Sabatini. They also have this Australian dude, Nathan Haas, who has done well in Amstel Gold Race and Santos Tour Down Under. Of course, the big signing was Elia Viviani before the start of the season. Viviani who has been a top 5 sprinter the last 3 years. Probably not the best sprinter, but because he had like Michael Morkov and a ridiculous strong sprint train, he won a bunch of races, a couple of like 4 Vuelta stages, a Tour stage, and 4 Giro stages, I think. And he won Vattenfall Cycle Classics, or I think it's Hamburg Cycle Classics now. He won that like 3 times in a row. He won Bretagne Classic. He's the current European, was the current European champion. So big expectations on Viviani on a big payroll. 1 second. But to be frank, Viviani has been awful. Already we could see he rode Santos Tour Down Under, where Consonni beat him in like every sprint, his lead-out man. He was quite awful in the Tour de France, and in the Giro I think he got 1 top 10 on a stage, and which is terrible for a sprinter of his stature with multiple Grand Tour stages. And to be honest, I think he looked quite untrained, quite fat for a cyclist. So he was a major disappointment. Jesus Herrada usually delivers. He won the Mont Ventoux Challenge last year, as well as a Vuelta stage. I don't think he had a good year. Guillaume Martin, of course, had a fantastic year. He just won the KOM jersey in the Vuelta. So he carried on the tradition of David Moncoutier, the former Kofilis rider who won the KM jersey like 4 years in a row or something. And I think Martin got a 12 spot on GC in the Tour after having a couple of bad days, and also he was third in the Criterion de Dauphiné. So yeah, Martin had a brilliant year, but Viviani was awful. Other than that, I think Dimitri Claes, he got like a top 10 spot on the Ronde van Vlaanderen, which is without doubt his best performance ever. Laporte was quite disappointing. Just double check some results. Okay, 2 victories for a team like Kofilis is awful. I think Perbes was actually he was the virtual KOM leader, but then he crashed, and therefore Benoit Cosnefroid got it instead. But they have if you just look, bunch of good placements throughout the year. So not any wins, but Martin did well. But considering they have spent so much money with Viviani and they have 2 victories the whole season, it has to be an E. Okay, Vanti Group Robert, the team of Sandro Maurice, Timothy Dupont, Odd Christian Eiking. Of course, last year they had Martin, and I think he placed decently on GC in the Tour. Sandro Maurice was, I think he was third on the La Planche de Belfi stage, and he was second in the stage de l'Antoins won in Criterion Dauphiné last year. So Eiking is also a good talent. He won the Queen stage in Arctic Race of Norway last year. But they had quite a poor season. I think Aymed de Ghent had a couple of good placements in the Belgian Classics, but I think it's quite a poor year from Vanti Group. Of course, they signed Danny Van Poppel, the son of Sean Van Poppel, before the season. Good sprinter, maybe on a good day is like a top 20 sprinter in the world. They have Pascal Lon, who did great, especially 2 years ago, I think. He won Luxembourg. But yeah, 4 stages. Maurice won Murcia. Fliegen, I think, did well. I think he also he rode so well that he even rode the World Championships for Belgium, which is an amazing performance, really, to be even considered to take place. Yeah, second on Lassamine, I think that was Aymed de Ghent. Yeah, Aymed de Ghent did well there. Yeah, some solid placements throughout the year in the classics. No big victories. Usually Timothy Dupont does well. Takes a bunch of top 5 placements in like the smaller Belgian and French races. So, considering they lost their star rider Martin before the year, I didn't have the largest of expectations, but I will give them a D for now. Okay, EF Education first. The team of Rigoberto Urán, Daniel Felipe Martinez, Sepp van Marke, Higita Monster, and Hugh Carty, Magnus Cort Nielsen. I had decent expectations for them. I'm a big Sepp van Marke fan. I'm always a believer of him. He always disappoints me. He did the same this year. He didn't win anything, I think. Rigoberto Urán got his top 10 in the Tour de France. Looked good. I think he struggled on the Côte de l'Or stage. Of course, Daniel Felipe Martinez won Criterium Dauphiné. Even though Roglic, Kruijswijk and Buchmann crashed, he still took the opportunity and was like the second or third strongest guy. Perfect win for them, big victory. They won multiple stages I think they won a stage in every Grand Tour, I think. Did they win in the Tour as well? Yeah, they won a stage with Daniel Felipe Martinez. And then they won 2 stages, I think, in the Vuelta with Magnus Cort and Giacatoli. And then they won a couple of stages in the Giro. Of course, with the Mighty Duck kit. I think both Ruben Guerreiro and Caicedo won. And also a great year, performance-wise, result-wise. Bettiol maybe had hoped for better in Ronde van Vlaanderen, but I think he was third or something in Gent-Wevelgem. They rode good in the classics, good podium position in the Vuelta, top 10 in the Tour de France, won Criterium Dauphiné, multiple stage wins, and of course the PR stunt of Jonathan Waters with the duck kit before the Giro with the Palace cooperation with the skateboard branding or something. It was quite fun to see. So I will give AF Vacation an A. Maybe based on their budget and expectations, I might give them an S, but I think I will reserve the S ratings for the best teams. Okay, the Euskadi team. It's like a reincarnation of the old Euskaltel team with the classic orange kit. I think they're owned by Mikkel Landa, who's a majority owner of the team. They have riders like Ruben Fernandez. I think it's the star rider. I can't even remember anything from this year. I even think Ruben Fernandez is switching team. Let me take a look. Euskadi. Yeah, they have Ruben Fernandez and of course the former sprinter Lobato. I think Lobato won on the Hatterdam in Dubai Tour. Decent sprinter, punchy sprinter. Of course, he got kicked out of Jumbo Visma. Jumbo Visma, of course, a couple of years ago. He took some sleeping pills together with Antoine Tolok, but only Lobato got kicked out of the team. This year, no wins. A couple of top 10s in the smaller Spanish races. Did they even ride the Vuelta? No. So, a Spanish team, Euskaltel team, no victories. Didn't get a wild card for the Vuelta, which is quite disappointing. But decent results in the Spanish races, so for me that's an E rating in my book. Okay, Groupama F27. The team of Demeanour, Thibaut Pinot, and David Goudou and Stefan Kung. I'm a big fan of Thibaut Pinot. Of course, was on track to perhaps win the last year's Tour de France. Of course, he lost like 1.5 minutes in the side win, but then he gained that time back. He won on the Tourmalet, the stage after, where Simon Yates won. He distanced Bernal, Thomas, and Alaphilippe and Kruijswijk. And yeah, great performance last year. But then, of course, he got this knee injury. This year, he looked good in Criterium du Dauphiné. He looked also okay in the races in March. I think he was top 5 maybe in Provence. Looked good in Dauphiné, as I said. I think he got 2nd and 3rd in the sprints after Roglic. Then, of course, he ended up 2nd in the Dauphiné. He cracked a bit on the last stage when Daniel Felipe Martinez, Miguel Angel Lopez and Tadej Pogacar attacked. He went into the Tour with a slight concern about his back injury. Then, of course, he crashes on the Flamme Rouge, the 1 kilometer to go banner on stage 1 in Nice, and he got injured. He was up there on stage 5 where Roglic won, but then on I think it was the Perisode stage where Nance Peters won. He got dropped by the Java train, where the French TV directors like showed 20 minutes of the morning train of Thibaut Pinot and his teammates, and then after that he basically gave up. He was a broken man. But he finished the race, probably because the race finished on La Planche de Belfi, where I think it's his home area. And then he went on to the Vuelta, had to abandon after a couple of stages. I can't see the reason for him even starting the Vuelta. If his back problem was that severe, they had to pick it up in training or something. So bad season from Pinot, mostly because of the back injury, so I won't be too harsh on him. Demeanour, on the other hand, had his best season ever. In my book, the best sprinter of 2020. Won Milan-Torino, won the Wallonie, Tour of Wallonie overall, a couple of stages. Was really strong in the hills, which he also showed in the National Championship of France, where I think usually 30 riders or something for France did show control the whole day, but then when Alaphilippe attacked, he managed to close the gap to Alaphilippe and beat him in a sprint in a quite hilly parkour finish. He got 2nd in the European Championship behind Nisolo, I think, and beat Ackermann. And then, I think he won one of these French races where he won 3 stages and the overall. The race he won every stages, including a time trial a couple of years ago. So one of his favorite races. And then he went on to the Giro d'Italia, where he dominated every sprint. So every stage which ended in a bunch sprint, Demeanour won easily. And also won the Ciclamino jersey, the point jersey in the Giro. And he provided me with one of my favorite moments in 2020. In the Sestriere stage, he was in the Gruppetto, and I think there was 1 or 3 laps of the Sestriere finish. And then he comes in the Gruppetto, zips up the jersey, and celebrates. Lovely. So his best season is a S-tier season for Demeanour. David Gaudu, it's quite disappointing. He also injured himself in stage 1, I think, in the Tour de France in the same crash as Pinot. Came in slightly undercooked, I think, in the Vuelta. went in a couple of breakaways, stayed up on GC. And then of course he won the last mountain stage in the Vuelta, and also climbed up to a 8th spot, I think, on GC. Stefan Kung also had his best year so far. He won the European Championship time trial. He was 3rd in the World Championships. He was good in Gent-Wevelgem, I think, but then he was really poor in Ronde van Vlaanderen. I think he was dropped with like 40 kilometers to go. And he was 3rd on GC in the Equator, where he was only beaten by Mathieu van der Poel and Søren Kragh Andersen. Other than that, they have riders like Rudy Mollard, Marc Sarrault. Marc Sarrault usually gets a bunch of victories in the smaller French races, but he of course went down in that horrible crash in stage 1 of Tour of Poland, where Fabio Jacobsen got badly injured. Just double check on Francis Deschamps this year. Good season, mostly saved by Arnaud Demar. So, based on Demar's great season and David Goudeur stage win in top 10 on GC, it's either a B or an A for me. I will probably give them an A. Maybe when I look over everything when I'm done, maybe a B, but so far B. A, I mean. Okay, Team Ineos. The biggest team in the world, arguably the best, alongside the Koenig Quickstep and Jumbo Visma. The biggest budget, I think Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos sponsors them with an absurd amount of money, especially with the new Grenadiers sponsorship. Before the season, they have Chris Froome, 7-time GC winner, Grand Tour winner, Richard Carapaz, last year's Giro winner, Geraint Thomas, winner and runner-up in the Tour de France, Egan Bernal. Before the season, the biggest GC talent in the world, of course won the Tour de France last year. They have riders like Kwiatkowski, Filippo Ganna, Luke Rowe, Dylan van Baarle, Ivan Ramiro Sosa, Pavel Sivakov, of course, one of the biggest talents in the world. Early season, I can't really recall any of the performances. I think Rohan Dennis and Dylan van Baarle did well in Santos Tour Down Under. But of course, Ineos doesn't really care about the smaller races. They only care about the Grand Tours and maybe the Classics. But already after the Corona lockdown, we could see, and I think Bernal and Sivakov did great in Occitanie race in France, where they got 1st and 2nd. But already in Tour de l'Ain, we could see that Jumbo Visma was miles above Team Ineos in terms of climbing strength, where only, I think, Jumbo Visma had Kruijswijk, Bennett, Dumoulin and Roglic on most stages, where it was only Egan Bernal and maybe Castroviejo left from Ineos. And this carried on to Criterium du Dauphiné, where Bernal had to abandon. Pavel Sivakov crashed a couple of times, but got a top 10 in GC in the Dauphiné. In the Tour de France, they did awful. Carapaz was kinda up there in like top 15. Bernal was actually did quite well to. I think he was second after 10 stages, Bernal. But then on Colombier and the stage where Lennon Cameron won, he was hemorrhaging time. And on the Colombier stage, he lost like 4 minutes. And his race was over. And he abandoned 2 days after, I think. Then Ineos got, of course, the stage win with Kwiatkowski. We were celebrated with Richard Carapaz. In the classics, I don't think Ineos did anything remarkable. I think Ethan Hayter maybe won a cup, Giro del Apollonia, I think, or one of the other small Italian races. But so far, the big goal of the season, which was the Tour de France, they disappoint. Of course, in the Giro, they managed to win, and they won, I think, was it 6 or I think it was maybe 7 stages? Something crazy like that. 4 stages for, of course, Filippo Ganna. 2 stages for Georgen Hart, and of course a GC win. Rowan Dennis with, in my book, the performance of the season on Sestriere and Stelvio, where he blew up the GC field, and only Jay Hindley and Jürgen Hart could follow. So a perfect Giro for Team Ineos. Then they went on to have a second place with Richard Carapaz in the Vuelta, a couple of 20 seconds or something behind Primož Roglic. Carapaz also got second in Tour of Pologne, or third, I think. Or did he crash on the last stage? Yeah, he crashed. I think Carapaz had to abandon Tour of Poland, if I recall correctly. But they won a Grand Tour. They have the best time trialist in the world. Podium in the Vuelta. So I still think it's a good season for Ineos, especially considering Geraint Thomas crashed in Giro. Of course, they went on to win the Giro. So what I'm saying, that doesn't matter. But yeah, good season. Could be more, like Thomas and Pavel Sivakov and Bernal had great potential this year, but didn't surmount anything because of injuries. So I will give Ineos a B, or maybe an E. I haven't decided quite yet. Like, they are the biggest cycling team in the world, and they have the largest expectations, but they also won the Giro. But I think I will take them down to B, at least for now. Okay, Team Jumbo-Visma. The team of Tom Dumoulin, Roglic, Steven Kruijswijk, Sepp Kuss, Rylan Groenewegen, George Bennett, Tony Martin. Last season, already one of the best teams. They got the best rider in the world last year in Primož Roglic, who got third in the Giro, won the Vuelta. I think he won Emilia, Romandie, Tirreno Adriatico and the UAE Tour. So the best rider in the world. Tom Dumoulin, they signed before the season. Won the Giro. 2 second places on GC in both. He was second in the Giro and second in the Tour de France in 2018. A former individual time trial world champion, of course. Won the Eneco Tour. Tony Martin, 4-time individual time trial world champion, but now he's a purely domestic rider. They had great riders like George Bennett and Sepp Kuss and Robert Resink and Lawrence de Plus as helpers in the mountain. And already before the season, they went out quite offensively in the media and said they already had decided their Tour team and their Giro team, and they said they will try to challenge Ineos for the title. Early season, I think they just got 1 or 2 wins with Dylan Groenewegen in, I think it was Valenciana. But most of the riders on Team Jumbo-Visma delayed their season start to, I think most of them tried to start in either Paris-Nice or Trenio Adriatico. And as well, I think Steven Kruijswijk had a knee injury, I think. But then Corona hit, so they never really started their season properly. But then after Corona break, Roglic went out guns blazing, won Tour de l'Ain, was about to win Critérium du Dauphiné, and especially in those races, Jumbo-Visma dominated every mountain stage, with at least, let's say there was a group of 10 riders left on the mountains. And then almost always there was Roglic, Bennett, Kuss and Dumoulin. So on paper the strongest team before the Tour. Throughout the Tour they were the strongest team, like Wout van Aert, the best cobble rider in the world, one of the best time trialists and one of the best sprinters, was now one of the best climbers. He rode Egan Bernal off the wheel up the Col de Colombière. Wout van Aert won 2 stages and Roglic won 1 stage, and of course they rode a perfect race. Maybe they should have been more offensive, and maybe they should have used Tom Dumoulin in a different manner instead of letting him drop down on GC. But perfect race. Quite disappointing to lose to Pogacar on La Planche de Belleville. But it was a freak performance from Pogacar, which you can especially see in the epic faces of Tom Dumoulin and Wout van Aert, just standing there, arms crossed and dumbfounded of what they are watching live. George Bennett was second in the Giro Lombardia, I think, behind Fuglsang. So, and then they won Strade Bianche, Milano Sanremo. With Wout van Aert, he was also third in Milano Torino, I think, which was a sprint version this year, won by demeanour. Then Wout van Aert went on to place second in Imola in the World Championships in the time trial. He won the Belgian Championship second in the World Championships road race. He was the big favorite, but everyone raced against him. But then again, he couldn't really follow Alaphilippe when Alaphilippe kicked and the steeper slopes. And then they won Liège-Bastogne-Liège with Roglic. The second monument wins of the season. And they got second with, as I said, with George Bennett. Then they got second as well with Wout van Aert in the Ronde van Vlaanderen. So 4 podiums out of 4 possible monuments this year. Of course, Paris-Roubaix got cancelled. And then they went on to win the Vuelta a España with Primož Roglic. So they have, in my book, the 2 best riders of the year in Wout van Aert and Roglic. 2 monument victories, 2 second places in monuments, and They've won the Vuelta a España, second on GC in the Tour de France. They have been the strongest team in the world, collectively, especially in mountain stages, and also did quite well in classics. I think both Mike Tønnesen and Amund Grøndal Jansen was a bit disappointing, but other than that, if they won the Tour de France, it would possibly be one of the best seasons ever from a team. They were so close on both Lombardia, Tour de France, and the World Championship for Wout van Aert, so I have to give Jumbo Visma an S+. Oh, an S, I'm sorry. There isn't any S pluses here. Okay, hopefully that will... it's just lag, so that will move itself after a while. Okay, Lotto Soudal. This is taking quite long. The team of Philippe Gilbert, John Degenkolb, Tim Valence, and of course Caleb Ewan. Caleb Ewan was arguably the best sprinter in the world last year, alongside Gylan Groenewegen. So big expectations on him. Of course, the investment Lotto Soudal had in Caleb Ewan last year was great. He won a couple of stages in Santos Tour Down Under, I think, and a stage in the UAE Tour. And Caleb Ewan also won 2 stages in the Tour de France. And he won Scalle Prize. So, considering it's a compromised season because of Corona, I think Caleb Ewan had a great season. The major signings before the season, of course, for Lotto Soudal was John Degenkolb and Philippe Gilbert. So just in those 2 guys you have like 20 Grand Tour stage wins, and it's like 7 monument victories. Something crazy like that. They never really delivered. I think John Degenkolb had some good placements in some of the classics. He was good in Gent-Wevelgem. He won a stage in Luxembourg. Philippe Gilbert looked good, but then again he crashed on stage 1 in the Tour de France and had to finish the season quite early. Tim Valence was good. If I recall correctly, he had a crash in August, Tim Valence, and therefore had to build up his form quite late, but then he got to the Vuelta a España and won 2 stages. So, what I'm saying, it's a great season with 2 stage wins in the Vuelta. Thomas de Gent was Thomas de Gent, went into every breakaway possible, had a couple of good time trial performances. I think he did okay in the last Giro time trial, but no wins. They have Carl Fredrik Hagen, the Norwegian, who placed 8th on GC in the Vuelta last year. He was quite disappointing this year. I think he struggled with the heat early on after the Corona break, but looking at his results in Tirreno Adriatico and Giro, I think he just didn't have a level this year. So just double check a bit on Lotto Soudal this season. Yeah, of course, Matthew Holmes won on Villango Hill, breaking Richie Port's like 7th victory in a row streak or something. But 12 wins for a team like Lotto Soudal. I think they are reworking their transfer policy. So you'll see like older riders like I think Tosh van der Sande, Jelle Valet, and Adam Hansen, and some younger riders like Rasmus Iversen and so forth aren't getting contract renewals, and so I think Lotto Soudal is trying to alter their rider profile next year. But I would give Lotto Soudal a B. Poor... oh, I'm sorry, that was Uno X. Okay, I will try Lotto Soudal on a B. I don't know why this site is so laggy, by the way. Like Degenkolb and Gilbert was disappointing, but 2 Vuelta stage wins and 2 Tour de France stage wins. That has to be decent for any team. Okay, Michelin Scott, the team of Simon Yates, Adam Yates, and Esteban Chavez, Jack Haig. One of my favorite teams. They of course have the famous backstage pass on YouTube. Simon Yates is in my book a top 5 climber in the world on his day. Of course, in the 2018 season he was flying in a Giro, and then he spectacularly cracked on the Sestier stage and lost like 40 minutes. But then again he went on to win the Vuelta a España quite comfortably, I think, in front of Enric Mas and Miguel Angel Lopez. And last year he won a Paris-Nice time trial stage. He was quite disappointing in the Giro. He was like 7th in GC. But then again he went on to win 2 stages in the Tour de France. So I had quite large expectations to Simon Yates. And then I think, Simon Yates, he won Tirreno Adriatico in quite supreme fashion, where he won the Queen stage in front of Rafał Majka and Geraint Thomas. But then in a Giro on the Etna stage, he lost like 4 minutes. He looked way out of form. Something was wrong. He looked sick. And then a couple of days later, it was confirmed that he tested positive for the COVID-19 virus. So he won Tirreno Adriatico. He got COVID, so I can't be too harsh on him. His twin brother Adam Yates won the UAE Tour, which is a World Tour race in February. He had a yellow jersey in the Tour de France and got 9th on GC, I think. So great race from Adam Yates there. Other than that, they didn't win any stages in the Tour. They didn't win any stages in the Giro because the team had to retire after Simon Yates tested positive. So just to take a look, I think Lucas Hamilton won a stage in the Tirreno Adriatico in front of Masnada, I think. Okay, Impi didn't win Santos Touranondo for the 3rd time in a row. They won a Czech Tour, not really a big race. So UAE Tour and Tirreno Adriatico and yellow jersey in the Tour. Like a weak B, maybe a C. Okay, Team Movistar. The team of Enric Mas, Marc Soler, and Alejandro Valverde. So they have Valverde, who is one of the best cyclists of all time and the best rider of his generation. has won everything. He has won a Grand Tour, Monuments, Classics. He has the record for top 10s in Grand Tours, and has won like the UCI and like the pro cycling ranking. Like he's top 10 or like top 3 in the rankings every year. Has won like 127 pro victories in his career. So, but then again, he is getting quite old. You could already see that last year and the year before that, really. Even though he was second last year in the Vuelta, and he of course won the World Championship 2 years ago. But you can see that he's struggling on the longer climbs, and he doesn't have the kick and the sprint he had a couple of years ago. And I think his sprinting legs kind of died in Düsseldorf in the prologue of the Tour de France in 2017, where Valverde had his season of his life. He won every race he entered. He won Flèche Wallonne, Liège-Bastogne-Liège, Catalonia, Basque Country, Valenciana, and everything he started he won. Then of course he crashed and injured his knee. And after that he's never been quite the same. Still good, but especially this year, maybe it's because of Corona, he dropped a level. Still consistent as ever. Like he got the top 10 in the Vuelta and 12 spots in the Tour de France. I think he got sick on the last time trial, so he lost a bunch of time. But it's the first year since 2003 Alejandro Valverde has not won a pro victory. So disappointing from Valverde, but also expected. Enric Mas got 5th in the Tour and 5th in the Vuelta, so it has to be a good season for him. Soler won a stage in the Vuelta, but other than that, it's quite an abysmal year. So just have to double check on Team Movistar. Yeah, 2 victories, both from Marc Soler. So, like, some good performances on GC, but it has to be a D from me. Of course, as had this been last year when they had Carapaz, Landa and Quintana as well, I would give them an F based on this performance. But considering they lost 3 of the star riders, I don't think the expectations really were that high anyway. And also they won the team classification in both the Tour de France and the Vuelta, so that's always a bonus, even though it's only Movistar who gives a fuck about that. Nippo Delco. That's the team of Girmay. I think that's the cyclist from Ravanda, who is a great talent. He's a great puncher sprinter. Won a couple of races. Other than that, I think they have Finetto, and they have Suskiewicz, I think, who got top 10 in the Paris-Roubaix a couple of years ago. To be honest, I can't remember anything about him this year except Girmay did great and has had a bit of hype around him on the internet. Yeah, Naudauskas hasn't performed in like 4 years. He got bronze in the 2015 championship in Richmond in Australia, in the US, I mean, behind Matthews and Sagan. Grosso usually has a couple of victories. Justin Jules was good last year. I think Jose Gonçalves got top 15 in a Giro in 2018. But this year, Girmay has been good. Simon Carr, I remember saw winning this race like a month ago. So I would say it's quite a good season for them. Of course, I don't really have a clue about the results, but based on this page and what I've heard about Gourmet especially, it's been a good season both performance-wise and PR-wise. So I will give them a C, maybe a B, but if I didn't give like Vital Concept a B, I don't think I will give Nippo or Delco a B, so a C so far. Team Novo Nordisk, I think that's the former diabetes team. I think they're the worst team in the UCI Pro team, alongside maybe Burgos. So don't really know anything about them. NTT, Dimension Data, that is the team of Edvald Boasson Hagen, Giacomo Nisolo, Victor Campanas and Roman Kreuziger. And they have Mikael Wahlgren and Enrico Gasparotto, Luis Menches, Ben O'Connor. Haven't had the best season, but relative to their expectations and performances from the couple, especially the 3 last seasons, it's been quite good. Nisolo has been one of the top 5 best sprinters in the world this year. He won a stage in the Tour Down Under. He also won a stage in Paris-Nice. He won the European Championships, and he also won the Italian National Championships. So great year for Nisolo. Unfortunately, got injured in the Tour de France and had to abandon in the first 6 stages, I think. Edvald Boasson Hagen has been quite poor. He hasn't really hit his heights since like 2012. He had a couple of seasons in 2015, 16 and 17 where he won stages in Dauphiné and Equator and Tour de France, but yeah, I think he's quite spent as a cyclist. Pozzovivo did okay, but he kinda faded the last week of the Giro. Campanas has been okay. There's always much talk about Campanas, but he performs, but he never really wins anything. And especially now when you have like an Evenepoel and Filippo Ganna, it's quite hard for him to win time trials, because either Ganna or like an Evenepoel or Dennis or Kung is competing, or the time trial course doesn't suit him, because companies often need flat, medium distance time trials to be good. Ben O'Connor won a stage in the Giro. Let me just double check. I think he won stage 16 or something. Stage 17 maybe. Yeah, stage 17 Ben O'Connor won. Valshed has been good. Not necessarily just in sprints, but he's showed himself both in classics and especially time trials this year. So, I mean, for most team, it's a quite poor season. Oh, that was Bardiani, I'm sorry. Let me see. Dimension Data. I will give them a C. I think they have had a large increase in performance. Good PR, especially with Giacomo Nisolo. Okay, that didn't work this time either. For some Recent Vanti Group Gobert is down here. Don't know why. This might be the worst page I've ever visited. It's quite laggy. Okay, I will bring entity there. Okay, next team is Rival Redinas. This is a Danish team. They have Sondre Holst Anger, the Norwegian sprinter, who won a stage in Croatia Tour in 2016. When he celebrated on the stage by dancing and doing a moonwalk, I think. A great talent. I think he got third in a stage in the Tour de France in 2016, and the stage in Swiss, finishing in the hometown of Cancellara. I think he got third behind Christoph and Peter Sagan. Other than that, I can't really recall many of the riders. I think they have Sindre Lunke. Nick van der Leike, Rasmus Kvard. He's won the Danish time trial championships a couple of times. Andreas Krohn is a good talent. He has signed for Lotto Soudal. So 2 stage wins. Some good results. I think they struggle with the finances. I think they do that every year. Always have to look for a new sponsor. So, but some good, okay performances from one of the smaller teams. Like 50 in Luxembourg is quite good. So I think I will give them a C. Next up is Gaspom. They have Simone Velasco, I think, who won Trofeo, one of the Italian races early in the season. I think he won that by a 50-kilometer breakaway last year, solo. They have Chanatchev, I think, who won Arctic Race of Norway and Tour de Fjords. Other than that, most of the riders are former Katusha riders, like I think Kashvetskov and Kuznetsov. I think Sakharin has signed for them next year. It's a rumor that Fabia Roux is going there as well. Can't really recall any of their results this year. A couple of years ago they had the wildcards at the Giro Italia with Firsanov and this individual mountain time trial goat. The meme lord himself. What's his name? Let me see. Gaspom. I think, okay. Kuznetsov, who got third in Gent-Wevelgem a couple of years ago. Chanatske, as I mentioned. Canola. I think he rode. Did he ride for Trek Segafredo? No, Nippi. I think his brother ride from Trek Segafredo. But a couple of years ago, they had this rider called. Where is he? Foliforov, who for some weird reason managed to beat both Valverde, Chavez, Nibali and Kruijswijk in a time trial, mountain time trial that is, in a Giro. We just motored all the way. Okay, enough about him. This season, I mean, a couple of good placements in the minor classics. I think that's no victories. I think that's an E for me. Okay, the rally team. I think they have Davos. They have some. Usually they do well in races like California, Utah. I think Brandon McNulty rode for them a couple of years ago. McNulty, who did well in this year's Giro. I think he was third on the stage 14 time trial behind Dennis and Gunnar. Can't really remember any of the results this year. Nathan Brown rides for them, Rob Britton. Okay. Won a couple of stages in the Mont Blanc Tour, which Pierre Rolland won. Did okay. Second in the Spanish Classic behind Simon Carr. But I think, considering it's a American team and America, especially American cyclists that struggle quite more than European cyclists because of the travel ban on Americans traveling to Europe and so forth, and basically most of the American economy is struggling. I think it's difficult to grade them, but a couple of victories, a couple of decent placements. It's quite harsh, but an E for me. Okay, Team Sunweb. The team of Michael Matthews, Wilco Kelderman, Mark Hirschi, Thijs Benoot. Probably the youngest team on average in the World Tour level. Possibly the weirdest managed team in the world. They have some weird transfer policies. Like it seems like if a rider does well, it seems like the management either makes a disagreement with the rider or either offers him to another team. And also I think Team Sunweb has quite a strict and weird training regime, like the relationship between the trainers and the riders. I don't think the riders are allowed to have their own trainers. So I think the management can be quite weird in Team Sunweb. But other than that, Michael Matthews, possibly the biggest rider on the team, had a weird year, I think. He did good in Paris-Nice, where we have Thijs Benoot, both on GC and win a stage. He got third in Milano San Remo, behind Alaphilippe and Wout van Aert, which is a good result. I think he injured his hand on the Poggio as well, so I think he was quite shocked. He won the Bretagne Classic, then he went on to the Giro. Disappointed. He was the favorite for like almost every sprint and hilly stage. And then he got the coronavirus and abandoned. And then a week after, I think it was revealed that it was a false positive test, that he didn't really have corona. But it's an okay season for Michael Matthews. I think it could have been great if he went to the Tour de France. But the management of the team didn't allow him to compete, so maybe that's the reason he has decided to ride for Mitchell & Scott next year. The Tour de France was amazing for Team Sunweb. Kees Bol was up there in the sprint, got second behind Wout van Aert on a stage. collectively maybe the best sprint train in the race with Kasper Pedersen and Neuhaus, I think he's called. Then of course Marquesi was the breakout star of the year, the most aggressive. I think he won the Combit award, I think it's called, for the most aggressive rider of the whole race. Of course he won stage 12, I think, and he was second on stage 2 and 9. And then of course he won La Flèche Wallonne and was third in Liège. And he also got third in Imola in the World Championships. So great season for Marquesi. Krag Andersen won 2 stages. Krag Andersen also won the time trial and got second on GC and in Ecuador. They got second and third on GC and the Giro. Some might say it was a tactical blunder by them, by Hindley not waiting on Kelderman and all the meme thing with the jacket. They didn't manage to zip up on the descent of the Stelvio. But second and third in Giro is an amazing result, especially for a team like Team Sunweb. Just to double check some of the results. Right, won La Flèche Wallonne, Grand Tour podiums, collectively great. It's either an A rating or an S rating for me. Just because of how they ride as a team, and considering they're not the biggest team. If I just can get it up here, I hope. Fucking shit site. Let me see. Okay, I'll fix that later, but Sunweb is in S tier, not F. Just to have that. Okay, then it is in S, finally. Okay, Top Sport van Vlaanderen. The former team of riders like Edvard Toyns, Yves Lampaert, and a bunch of other good Belgian racers. I think like the function or like the purpose of Top Sport van Vlaanderen is it's like a feeder team for bigger teams. So they try to develop Belgian riders from the Flemish region. Can't really recall any of the results this year. So let me have a look. There they are. Like, I recognize the names, but that's mostly it. I think no victories, performed decently in a couple of sprint stages and sprint classics. So no victories means an E for me. I'm sorry. Okay, Total Direct Energy. The team of Liliane Calmejean, Niki Terpstra, Nicolo Bonifacio. I think Pierre Latour will join them next year from Assure de Serre Mondial. Honestly, one of my least favorite teams. I don't like Calmejean. I think he's a prick. I don't like Niki Terpstra. I think he's a prick.
I don't like Nicola Bonifacio. I think he's a prick. Terpstra has been awful this year, and last year one of the worst signings. To be fair to him, he's been quite unlucky with all his crashes. Bonifacio has been okay this year. Won a stage in Paris-Nice. I think Jeremy Cousin was in like every breakaway before he had to abandon on Colombier stage in Tour de France. Second in Challenger Prize with, I think it was Bonifacio. And then he got fourth in Flanders with Tucci, which is a great result, but considering Team Direct Energy is one of the wealthier teams in this division, it's not really good with only 3 victories, but a stage win in Paris-Nice and a fourth in a Ronde van Vlaanderen. I'm getting quite tired now, but I think it warrants a D rating. Okay, I can take the Koenig Quickstep next. I don't know how they got put in F. Okay, but the Koenig Quickstep, the most winning team the last like 3 seasons. They're one of the best riders in the world in both Evenepoel and Julian Alaphilippe. They have Fabio Jakobsen, Kasper Asken, Bob Jungels, Stybar, Almeida. So I think they got 37 victories, if I'm not mistaken, this year. Remco Evenepoel won like 4 stage races, San Juan, Algarve, Burgos in Poland, looked unbeatable, but then as well he never really competed against the best riders. He looked good in Lombardia before he crashed off the bridge. Kasper Asken has been a bit disappointing this year after he won Kuurne-Buurse-Kuurne. Bob Jungels has been a shadow of his former self. I think Bob Jungels hasn't looked good since like Flanders last year, after he had this insane performance in Etre Harelbeke. So both Jungels and Asken has been a bit disappointing. Lampert, of course, had his crash in Milan-Torino. Then I think he won Driestage de Panne, the one-day race. Alaphilippe has been both great and awful. He had a yellow jersey after winning stage 2 in Nice. He was second in Milano-San Remo, but then of course he lost the yellow jersey after he received a bottle from his cousin Frank Alaphilippe inside the last 20 kilometers of stage 6, I think. So was quite a negative part of his season. And then the rest of the Tour de France, I think he rode quite destructive. He was only riding for attention with half-assed attacks, and I think we saw him already here displaying some of the facts he displayed in Liège-Bastogne-Liège. Rode a lot of swerving around the road, nervous riding, looking behind himself, and yeah. Some people might like that kind of riding. Maybe they call it panache or entertaining, but I just find it annoying. I think it's just an act for the cameras. But nevertheless, great victory in Tour de France. He had a yellow jersey. He went on to win the World Championship, maybe the most important one-day race in the world. He fucked up in Liège-Bastogne-Liège, maybe the most embarrassing finish in the last at least last 10 years of cycling. Of course, he won Brabantse-Pijl and looked good in Flanders before he crashed. It was not really anybody's fault, but he didn't look in front of himself, and he crashed in a motorcycle. He also almost fucked up in Brabantse-Pijl, so a great rider, strong as fuck, but I think like how he performed in a couple of his appearances this year has been quite awkward, I think. Of course, Jakobsen had this horrendous crash in Poland. I think he actually won that stage. They awarded him the stage. He also won a stage in Valencia, I think. Evenepoel, of course, got injured. Then, of course, Almeida rode an amazing Giro d'Italia, finishing 4th. Not the best in the long climbs. Perhaps one of the best puncheurs in the race. And he really performed in time trials. I didn't expect him to be a good time trialist based on his former results, but okay, he was great there. But summed up, and I forgot to mention, of course, Sam Bennett won the green jersey in the Tour de France. So a couple of stage wins in the Grand Tours. The World Championship with Alaphilippe. They didn't win a podium. They didn't win a monument. I mean, they got a podium in, of course, in Milan-San Remo with Alaphilippe. Most winning team. But I think based on their expectations, I think it's an A for me. Just let me double check on their results. Of course, they lead the Super Specialist. I'm sorry, that was. I'm sorry. They won the Super Prestige ranking, and I think they won the UCI ranking as well. But I think, of course, they performed great, but I think many of both on the bike and off the bike, they have appeared quite unprofessional at times. Like Patrick Lefevere is the biggest idiot in cycling. Some of his comments, I think, especially regarding Irland Groenewegen and other disqualifications of his riders, has been quite poor and hypocritical. And riders like Evenepoel and other of his teammates has had some weird Twitter status, and I think maybe not the best year for them PR wise and reputation wise. So I would give them an A rating. Okay, Trek Segafredo, the team of Nibali, Bauke Mollema, Giulio Ciccone. So Nibali is of course new on the team. Before the season he arrived from Bahrain McLaren, or Bahrain Merida as it was called last year. Now 35 years old. He just got 36 in October or November, I think. Of course got second in the Giro last year and won a stage in the Tour de France. Of course, his goal this year was probably a podium in a Giro, and based on the start list, and Yates and Kruijswijk and Thomas and Vlasov abandoning, a 7th spot on GC is quite disappointing. But then Nibali also said that his numbers was the same as a couple of years ago, but the level was really high this year. So, but quite a poor year for Nibali. He attacked on the Cipressa or Poggio, I think, in the Milano Sanremo. He was poor in Tirreno Adriatico and poor in the Giro. Mats Pedersen had a good year. The current reigning world champion. He won Gent-Wevelgem, a stage in Poland, and a stage in Ecuador, and was generally praised by cycling fans of his riding style. He also got second in the first stage behind Christophe in Tour de France. Stuyven won the Omloop Het Nieuwsblad. Around that they were quite poor in the remaining couple of classics. Mollema was okay in Lombardia, but then he crashed in the Tour de France. Richie Porte had a great year, won Santos Tour Down Under, third on GC in the Tour, his best result ever. Let me double check. Toynes was a bit disappointing. Ciccone was disappointing. I think he got corona. He never really recovered after that. So, a Grand Tour podium, a couple of big victories, but Nibali was disappointing, Ciccone was disappointing. So, based on the expectations, they have reigning world champion Nibali, Porte, Stuyven, etc. I think it's a C for Trek Segafredo. Okay, then we have UAE Team Emirates, the team of Christophe, Pogacar, Fabio Aru, Rui Costa, Fernando Gaviria. So, Pogacar, amazing season. Started with a bang, winning Valenciana quite supremely. Went to finish, I think it was second or third behind Adam Yates in the UAE Tour. Fourth in the Dauphiné, I think. And then, of course, he had this insane performance in the Tour de France, winning 3 stages. The KOM jersey, the white jersey, and of course the yellow jersey. I think it's the first time a rider since Eddie Merckx has won all those 4 jerseys in the same edition. Even though at that time it wasn't a white jersey, but even still Eddie Merckx was eligible for that competition. And then he was quite good in Flèche Wallonne. I think he was top 10. He attacked and animated the World Championships for Roglic. He attacked with 30 kilometers to go, I think. He was third in Liège-Bastogne-Liège. He was constructed by Alaphilippe. I don't think he would have won against Hirschi either way, but that was a shame. So, insane season by Pogacar. Christophe won, of course, the first stage of the Tour de France, setting the bar for the team for the rest of the tour. He held the yellow jersey for 1 day for the first time in his career. And then he, of course, went on to finish third in the Ronde van Vlaanderen to just extend his perfect run of results in Flanders. I think he's ridden it like 8 times, and 7 of the 8 times or 9 times he's competed, he has been in the top 5. 3 times on the podium and 1 victory. So a legend of the Tour of Flanders. So good season for him. Tour de France win, podium in Flanders. Other than that, McNulty was okay in the Giro. Ulissi had maybe his best season ever. He won a stage in the Giro, he won Luxembourg, and generally placed high in most of the races he competed in. Gaviria was not that good. He magically managed to contract Corona 2 times. I think he's the only athlete who has done that. He won a couple of stages in, I think he won a Tirreno stage, I'm not quite sure. But I think he only won minor races, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, San Juan, Burgos, and Limousin. And that's not good enough for a rider of his caliber. Of course, the coronavirus could have played a role. Other than that, Molano was good in Colombia, I guess. Philipsen won a stage in the Vuelta and an Ecuador. So, a great season. Didn't win the biggest of races, so, and also they have one of the largest budgets, so I think I'll give UAE team an A rating. Also, I think David de la Cruz got 7th spot on GC in the Vuelta. That's a great result for him. Okay, then it's Vinnie Fantini, the team of Gianni Visconti. He was up there challenging Ruben Guerreiro for the KOM jersey in the Giro Italia, but I think he had to abandon because of a knee injury. Other than that, I can't really remember if they even won a race this year. I think the Sardini was okay, maybe. Okay. Wackerman it was. He won to the Limousin. But also he got injured in the first 5 stages in the Giro. So, a shame for him. I remember Bongiorno was good like 6 years ago. He had that incident with on the Soncolan. He was challenging with I think with Michael Rogers on the Soncolan for the stage win. Then a spectator pushed him off his bike with an accident. But at least he's back in business. Frapporti always in the break. Visconti didn't have a good season. I think Visconti had a great season last year. Yeah, a good season last year. So I'll give them a D, I think. Wackerman was okay, and Visconti challenged for the KM jersey, and yeah. And then we have the last team, which is Uno X development team. One of the smallest team in the pro cycling level. They were a Conti team before. I'm Norwegian, so I know a lot about them. I even watched them live as an spectator. They are the team of Andreas Leknesson, Markus Holgar, and his elder brother Daniel Holgar. They have Torstein Træn, and a bunch of the best Norwegian talents. Unlike many other teams, they have a quite strict policy this year on COVID rules and which races they will compete in. So they've had quite a restricted racing schedule. So that races in Italy and France and Poland and such forth has been cancelled by them. But they began the season quite good. They had a top 10. I think they had an 8th spot on GC in the Tour of Colombia with Torstein Træn, which is one of the greatest climbing performances in Norwegian cycling history.
he was the only non-South American rider in top 10 on GC, where you had like Martinez and Bernal and Carapaz and so forth. Leknesund was great. He won the under 23 European Championships and the time trial. He also set, I think his time would hold for a top 5 in the senior race as well. So great performance by him. He was 13th, I think, in the senior individual World Championship time trial. Markus Holgar was great. He was second in Luxembourg and second, I think, in the Czech Tour. He was also quite good in the World Championships. Let me just double check some of the results. Yeah. A bunch of great results for a fairly small team. Like, they didn't compete in many races, but like in almost every race they competed in, they got a result. So, of course, I'm quite biased as Norwegian, but I think I'll give them an A. Okay, that was my last team placed on the tier list. Now I'll do a quick review. If something will change. I think Jumbo Visma and Team Sunweb deserves their S rating, both on performance and general appearance this year. Alpecin-Fenix A, I agree with. F Education first, even an S maybe. Groupama After Sjø. Like, they've won 5 Grand Tour stage wins, so the best sprinter in the world maybe. I think A is warranted. Israel Cycling Academy, I haven't really placed them, so for some reason they are in A tier, so I have to replace them. Team of Dan Martin, André Greipel, Alex Dowsett. I mean, Alex Dowsett won a stage in the Giro d'Italia. I think Rudy Berbier was good. Hugo Hofstetter was great in the Tour, a couple of top 10 places in the sprint stages. He also won Les Amis, the Cobble Classics. Dan Martin won a stage in the Vuelta. And he got 4th on GC. So I think that's quite good. Also, they do the usual Israel Cycling Academy strategy of having like 5 sprinters competing in every sprint, so they get UCI points. Let me just double check. They are a World Tour team, in fact. I think I'll put them down to a B. So, based on their expectations, their riders, and previous performances from the previous years, I think it's quite good. 4th on GC in the Vuelta, 2 Grand Tour stage wins, Les Amis. I think that's good enough for a B. So, I think this has been fun. I don't think the site likes me. I don't like it either. It's quite buggy. Maybe I've talked too long about some teams and maybe too short about some others. Of course, some teams I don't really have much evidence to base my arguments and ratings. For example, Team Novo Nordisk, Abadiani, a Topsport van Vlaanderen, I haven't really paid attention to too much this year, but maybe that's telling. Maybe that's because they haven't been noteworthy. So, but at least this is my ranking of all the teams in either the World Tour division or the Pro Team division in pro cycling. Hope you like it.